Welcome to the Black Anarchist Podcast, a channel where critical thinkers come to learn and grow. Through pedagogical discussions, we challenge the status quo, conventional narratives, and present raw truth. I'm JC, author of the Black State Project, The Path to Sovereignty, Reparations, and Rebuilding Black Wall Street. Now, today I want to talk about the hierarchy of complicity. This is actually based on a social hierarchy, but I sort of modified it for political terms. This really explains where everyone fits in this political system and their complicity within it. I've actually been wanting to talk about this for several days, but I haven't been feeling well. This is because I have allergies and apparently I have black mold in my air conditioning. So there's some other content that I want to do, but I really wanted to get this out the way. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it. As y'all see, there's the alphas, betas, deltas, gammas, and omegas. And then on the side, you have the sigma and the zetas, right? The sigmas and the zetas operate outside of the hierarchy. I used to think that I was a sigma, but I recently learned about the zetas. And so I guess all anarchists would be considered zetas. Um, and I'm going to go down this whole hierarchy and explain how they function within the system. So at the apex of it, you have the alphas, right? These are the architects of society. Um, you can do that whole personality test to see how you are. Like I did the personality test, and I was what did I come out with? I came out as an architect, but I can't remember exactly what it was. Gosh, and that's the reason why I thought that I was a sigma, because sigmas are basically introverted alphas. But the difference is that zetas are not really trying to lead people. I'm going to get to the zetas. Let's just stick to the alphas for right now. So these are the people who set the agenda, right? These are the heads of corporations, the billionaire class, the shareholders, the political elites, media moguls. They're not just wealthy, they shape public policy, they control resources, and dictate the terms of everyone else's existence, right? It goes from the top down. They control the means of production. They sit on corporate boards, they run hedge funds, they inherit dynasties, and they use their wealth to lobby governments. They don't actually work, right? They extract value from everyone beneath them. Their motivation is power consolidation and wealth accumulation. They see the world as a game board and they're winning. To them, the system isn't broken, it's functioning exactly as they designed it. They are the primary oppressors, right? They benefit from inequality because the system funnels wealth upward directly into their pockets. Um, by the way, they're not just motivated by money, right? They're not motivated just by wealth. They're also motivated by power, and are also sadistic. Let me make sure y'all can hear me before I keep going, because I don't. Okay, well you're here. I don't see anybody saying that they can't hear me. So they are the system, right? Um, their goal is to protect private property, right? They criminalize resistance. And this is on a global level, by the way. They're not really national. These so-called alphas, these are multinational. These are leaders of multinational corporations. They are the world leaders of governments. Um, I told you I don't think that Trump is an alpha. I don't think that presidents are alphas. Let me get to the next level, the betas, right? Because a lot of people think that a beta is somebody who's submissive, subservient. They're really not. The betas are the lieutenants, right? they're the second in command, right? So the alpha determines the agenda, they set the agenda, and then the betas are the enforcers. So they're the ones who are actually doing the dirty work, right? You don't actually see the alphas most of the time because the alphas are behind the curtain. They're the ones who are pulling the strings, and you don't actually see them. They're not visible most of the time. The betas are the ones who are out there doing the dirty work. This is what Trump is, a beta. And again, I'm not using beta the way that most people understand it. People think that betas are not leaders. They are leaders. They just don't set the agenda. They carry out the agenda of the alpha. So Trump is doing the dirty work of somebody, a group of people who are higher than him. He is not the most powerful person in the world. Presidents are not. They're basically like CEOs of a corporation, right? And then the board of directors, they're the actual alphas. They're the ones who are setting the terms. So Trump is being controlled by people who are higher than him. Um, and I've already explained in detail what his second presidency is about. It's about a controlled demolition of an empire that is fading. So that's what you see, all the chaos. That's what he's doing. It's not because he decided to do this. This is what the powers that be decided, and he's carrying out their dirty work. So the betas are the enforcers, right? These are the high ranking politicians, the corporate executives, the military generals, police chiefs, judges, prosecutors, senior managers, and religious leaders, right? Not only do they carry out the dirty work of the alphas, but their role is also to legitimize the system, right? They, especially the courts, they're not there to actually protect your rights or to be an actual check against abuses of power. No, their primary role is to legitimize the system. And that's what all of these betas do. That's what the churches do. That's what the corporations do, right? That's what even social media, right? You see how people get shadow banned and there's censorship and all that. That's because they're all complicit. Um, they're all betas. They're all operating within the same hierarchy. And it's it's almost like the hierarchy is cannibalistic because in order to move up, you really have to feed on other people in order to get to the top. And so they do it because they all get rewarded. The more you comply, the more powerful you become. And so you're not you there's only a very select few who are actually going to be alphas. Everybody else is going to be somebody else's bitch. That's just the way the system is designed, right? Um, People don't really care about that because at least they're not at the bottom. I've already talked about that at length. They don't care about being oppressed as long as they have the ability to oppress others. So um, they don't look at who's above them. They look at who is beneath them, who they can oppress and exploit. Um, so these are CEOs, but they're not the owners, right? They're the elected officials who carry out corporate interests. They do the dirty work of the corporate donors, right? These politicians are well funded and they have to deliver on the promises that, well, not to the American people, right? They fulfill the promises that they make to their donors, but they make false promises to the American people. I've already talked to you all about Cicero. Um, this was a philosopher during the ancient Roman time, during the, well, anyway, before it was BC, and I've talked about Cicero that he wrote this pamphlet called "How to Win an Election." I mean, this is an ancient book, but it has been translated to English, and it still has salience today because it talks about how you make false promises, how you basically need to be associated with people who are in power, how you basically you can lie to people and give them false promises, and then once you're in office it doesn't matter because now you're in office, now you have the legitimacy. And so basically people will forgive you because now you have that status and you don't actually have to explain yourself. Um, so it's so perverse. It's actually better to lie and give people false promises because they don't actually want to hear the hard truth. They don't want you to actually explain the gory details of how to fix society. They want you to sell them bullshit and then basically get power by any means necessary, and then you can sort of justify it on the back end, right? Oh well, it wasn't my fault. The other side prevented me from implementing it. Oh, I just didn't have enough money. But if you elect me a second time, then maybe I'll have a chance to actually do it, right? And then it's incrementalism and just constant, excuse after excuse of why they can't deliver, and American people obviously fall for it. But again, this was a pamphlet that was written back before Christ, so this is the way the political system functions. Um, they're the active managers of oppression, right? They draft the legislation. So you look at the lawyers, the members of Congress, and their staff, and you think that they're the opposite. They're not. They're betas. They're doing the dirty work of other people. Um, the agenda is being set from at a level higher than them. They're not the ones who are actually controlling things. They're just carrying it out. Um, it's the police who are making the arrests, the prosecutors, um, the corporate executives who fire people and lay people off. They're doing it because somebody told them to do it, right? This is what I was trying to tell y'all about Trump and that video, and also the article that I wrote on Substack. That Trump was selected specifically because this is the controlled demolition of an empire. So the powers that be already decided that they were going to put Trump in power to oversee our downfall. And he's really just trying to repackage to you to make it sound like, oh, we're so great. Like, oh, we don't have to do business with these countries. We can just impose tariffs, right? He's basically feeding you your own shit and then trying to sell you to it like you're eating steak mignon. Like, no, you didn't have a choice, right? You're imposing tariffs because these countries don't want to deal with you anymore. The U.S. dollar is about to be dumped and replaced by another currency, and so you're trying to save face to say that you're in control. And no, he's fucking over the American people. It's really about saving the government. He's spelling out the government and the corporate interest by throwing American people under the bus. So the purpose of the tariffs is so that we can fund our own oppression. So he's not trying to help us. He's trying to squeeze out as much money as he can get because this is the liquidating phase of a falling corporation. But again, I've already explained all that in a previous video, and I've also written about it on Substack. But that's his role as a beta. Um, those judges that you see, you think that you can engage in moral reasoning with them, that you can just appeal to their conscience. They don't have a conscience. They're just doing what they're told. Um, it's not even that they're necessarily following the law. There's unwritten laws that they're aware of, right? And I'm not sure how they are aware of it because it's not like they teach this in law school. It's not like there's any secret meetings where they actually explain it explicitly, but they all know it. They all know the reaches of the legal system, that you can't use the system to destroy yourself. They know that there's certain things that you just can't do. And I'm not sure how they all figured it out, but apparently I never got the memo because I'm sitting up here litigating these cases. I'm thinking the law actually matters, and they don't give a shit about the law. It's something else. It's something that is intangible that has never been fully articulated. So and I guess we can talk about the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is really legitimizing the system. specifically, the Supreme Court's role is to legitimize the president. Um, and then any type of resistance, they're not going to dismantle. You can't use the legal system to dismantle itself, right? What they're trying to do is give a moral justification for oppression, right? They're not, and you can listen to all the minutia, all the bullshit about why they're oppressing you. It's like, can you just cut to the chase and just say we just don't give a shit that we're the government, we're all powerful, and we're just going to impose our will through physical force, right? Because they always want to make it seem like, oh, we've considered both sides and we were being so fair. No, you and measured. No, you were not. You were not being measured. You already knew exactly what the hell you were going to do. This is a dog and pony show. The law itself is a tool of oppression. Um, every statute, every legislation, every legal precedent maintains a hierarchy, right? And by the way, they're also acts of violence because they're enforced through physical force. Um, Judges and lawyers are just storytellers, right? That's what they're doing. They're selling you a story. They're just giving you something that makes you feel comfortable. Um, they're marketing oppression to make it sound better than what it actually is. They're dressing it up. Taxation is actually theft. Jury duty is slavery, right? Um, an arrest is really kidnapping. But they're never going to tell you this shit. They're going to make it sound better than what it is. They're going to legitimize it. Arresting you is really just throw you in a cage. And this is the reason why when I write my legal arguments, I use plain language. Like, I'm not going to call it an arrest. You're trying to throw me in a fucking cage. That's exactly how I'm going to write it out. The religious leaders, the pastors, the priests, the rabbis. I mean, I guess I don't know anything about it. I guess, of course, Christians know something about Judaism just because most of us have read the Old Testament. But I guess there's other books in the Torah that we're not privy to. But anyway, give unto Caesar, right? It's supposed to be a whole separation, but no, there's really not. It's the same system. Um, and what I write about in my upcoming book is how Christians don't really believe in divine authority. They don't really believe that God is all powerful. They rely heavily on the power of the state to impose their will on everybody else through physical force, which means that they have a lack of faith. Um, let me make sure. Let me see if there's anybody here. Okay. Um, the psychological warfare, right? I've talked about the whole psychology of judges, like how they elevate their benches so that you have to look up to them, the color of their robes. I've talked about the legalese, the language. This whole thing is psychological to give legitimacy to it. Um, and even the law itself, it because of this manufactured legitimacy, you actually feel guilty for violating the law, right? It's almost as if you committed a sin because the government is God. So when you break the law, you think you have committed a moral vice. It's like even if nobody's watching, even if no one was harmed, you feel guilty about it because you violated the fucking law, even though the law is illegitimate. And the law is used as an instrument of oppression to oppress us, but it really is liberation for those who are in power. They get status, they get wealth, they get tax exemptions. Um, the priests are really, I don't know, they're really manufacturing consent for statism. They'll tell you that it's the will of God to obey your master. And by the way, these same false prophets were actually selling slavery as a moral good, right? That obeying your master was for your benefit, that you were going to be rewarded in the kingdom of God. All this bullshit, this slave mentality bullshit, which is keeping people enslaved today. But they get rewarded. These betas, they get high salaries, they get prestige, job security, the illusion of control, right? Y'all respect all these people. They look so authoritarian. Y'all look at people like the judges. You don't even have to be a real judge. You could be a damn TV judge. You could be Judge Judy, Judge Joe Brown, and all of a sudden, well, even Donald Trump. Donald Trump started as a reality. Well, of course, he was a businessman first, but he was on a reality show, and because he had this whole image of being a boss, that made him look presidential. Um, my phone is going off, but I'm going to ignore it. Okay, so now let's go to the next class, the deltas. The deltas are the working class. These are the worker bees of society. These are just the people who go to work every day. You know, they value stability. They want a comfortable life, a house, good schools for their kids, retirement savings, a vacation once a year, right? They believe in incremental progress, and they believe in working within a system. This is most people, by the way. Most people are deltas. They're not they're not really leaders. They basically just want to get through life and just, I guess, be happy, but they're not really revolutionary. They're not really trying to cause any trouble. They don't even think about challenging the system at all. They are the infrastructure of the system. They legitimize it through their participation. They vote. They pay their taxes. They consume responsibly, right? They they really shun rocking the boat. Um, I guess the goal is to become middle class, and then they're happy with their current status. Um, the system works well enough for them, so they're not going to complain. Anyway, they basically, these people live in perpetual fear because they don't want to lose whatever privileges they get from the system. So they're going to keep their heads down. They're going to try to accumulate wealth. They're never going to be, wealthy, but they're okay with the fact that they have a nice house, a nice car, um, and so whatever they're respectable, law-abiding citizens, and that's good enough for them. They don't want anything more than that. The gammas are the reformists, the traditional socialists, the people who think they can fix the system from within. These are the democratic socialists, the social democrats, progressive activists, union bureaucrats, DSA members, electoral leftists, right? They're the organizers, teachers, social workers, nonprofit employees, union staff, political staffers, and activists. They run for office, knock on doors, they attend city council meetings, they draft policy proposals. They genuinely believe that they can use the state for good. They think that if they just elect the right people, pass the right laws, implement the right policies, then the system can work for everyone. They want wealth redistribution, workers' rights, universal health care, free education, all delivered through state power. So make no mistake about it, the gammas are complicit. They are still trying to use the system, right? They're not opposing the hierarchy. They just want to climb it and reshape it to serve their interests. They want to use the state to impose their vision through violence, just like everybody else. Um, they'll tell you that they're different because their policies help people, but force is still force. Their taxation is backed by violence, right? Regulation. By the way, these people are big proponents of regulation, right? They want to regulate everything. They want to regulate everything to the high heavens, and they don't see themselves as being violent when they actually are. Um, their revolution is really just reshuffling of who controls the monopoly on physical force. Um, they gain positions with it as elected officials, as nonprofit directors, as union leaders, government administrators. Um, right, they're the controlled opposition, right? They're the people that used to be taken serious as activists, right? They're the people who work within the system. They're the ones who are they're the adults in the room who are practical, right? They're the ones who try to work within the system, but they don't want to go too far. Um, they pretend that they're radical, but they're really not. If you go too far, it makes them uncomfortable. They sustain the system by channeling dissent back into it, right? They're the ones who are going to tell you to go file a lawsuit. They're the ones who are going to tell you to just go write your elected officials, right? Um, they're the ones who are going to tell you to vote. Um, and they basically just want to struggle in perpetuity. They're not actually trying to do anything radical. Um, they believe that the system can work, even though it doesn't work for anybody. But they believe that there's the potential. There's the potential that if you just put the right people in, it's going to work for everyone. It's just not going to happen. But most of all, they believe in the legitimacy of the state. So the Omegas are the people at the bottom, the people who have been destroyed by the system. They're the poor, the homeless, the incarcerated, the disabled, without support, those who are marginalized. These are the people who have been completely discarded by society. They barely survive. They rely on inadequate social services, shelters, food banks, emergency rooms. Many of them cycle through prisons. They work grueling jobs if they're able to get work at all. Their motivation is immediate survival, food, shelter, and safety. They're not thinking about ideology. They're thinking about getting through the day. Um, the megas are the cautionary tale. These are the people that the system uses to give you a warning that if you don't comply, if you don't cooperate and do what we tell you, you're going to end up like the Omegas. You're going to be the forgotten man and forgotten woman, right? The system benefits from their suffering because it disciplines everyone else into submission. Omegas are simultaneously victims and involuntary enforcers of the system's logic. They almost receive no benefits from the system, right? They're trapped in the system, but at the same time, they don't have any way to get out of it. So um, the system doesn't benefit them at all, but at the same time, they don't have any alternative. They're just going to be they're going to be the downtrodden for the rest of their life. They're going to be homeless. They're going to be poor. They're going to be basically fighting for scraps. And they're basically the undesirables of society that nobody really cares about. Um, but at the same time, those people at the bottom, they don't really think about the system. They don't think about they don't they don't realize how they got to where they are. They don't realize that they have actually been fucked by the system. Um, those people are not thinking about the system at all. Which is what I write about in my book. You guys, this book is so good. What those people think about are those in their proximity. They think about the people in their neighborhood. The person who did not give them money when when they asked for money. They still. I'm not going to say that they all still, but the bottom line is that they only focus they channel their grievances on the people within their proximity. So if you live in a poor neighborhood, then you're going to be their victims, right? They're not going to focus on the wealthy. They're not going to focus on the alphas, the betas. No, they're not going to go to the wealthy neighborhood and ask them for money. They're going to ask for the deltas, the working class, they're going to be the ones who are responsible for carrying the gamuts of society. Um, the alphas and the betas don't even give a shit at all. Now, now these are the people who exist outside of the system, the sigmas. The sigmas and the zetas. Let's start with the sigmas. The sigmas, and I'm not sure how accurate I'm being, but I'm going to say that the sigmas are the libertarians of society. And again, I thought that I was a sigma, but then I realized upon further exploration that I'm actually not a sigma. I'm actually a zeta. The sigmas are the libertarians of society, right? Because right, the sigmas are the lone wolves. They're not really part of the hierarchy, but they can function within it. So I guess they're halfway in, halfway out. They still use the system for their good. They for their benefit. They manipulate it when it's convenient, but they don't really want to be a part of. They don't really want to be fully integrated in the system, right? But let's go into the context of libertarians, right? The libertarians, they see the state as oppressive, right? They oppose government violence. They talk about freedom, but the catch is that they still worship capitalism. And capitalism is another form of domination. Capitalism is a hierarchical system which exists only because of the state. The corporations exist because it is a special privilege that is given to states. I mean, to corporations, right? Everyone else would be personally liable, but the state has given corporations limited liability. Property rights are creations of the state. Property rights are legal fiction; they don't exist in nature, but property rights give you the ability to exploit others. It gives you the ability to live without working, all because you own capital. But libertarians see this as they see that their liberation coming through financial means, right? That they can accumulate wealth, and then that is going to give them personal liberation, right? They're not really trying to liberate others, not really. Um, so they're going to be entrepreneurs. They're going to be tech workers, the cryptocurrency enthusiasts, freelancers, small business owners, investors, right? They're committed to self-sufficiency and voluntarism. They want freedom from the state, no taxes, no regulations, no welfare, no government interference in markets. They believe in property rights, voluntary exchange, and a magic of the free market to solve all problems. Um, as I've just stated, capitalism cannot exist without a state, right? They only have their property rights because of the state. Capitalism allows them to exploit others. They can evict tenants. Um, I could go more in detail about the libertarians. I'm not going to go. I'm not really going to go that because I really want to focus on the Zetas. But they oppose the state in theory, but demand it in practice every time their property is threatened. Um, they don't recognize that capitalism is exploitive, right? So, in some, they don't actually value freedom, right? They value the freedom to dominate others through economic um, exploitation rather than political. So, this is why I call them the anarcho capitalists, right? They want to dominate people through economics rather than political force. But for some reason, they think this is legitimate. That if they have economic power, because they have reason that economic power is voluntary and political power is not. It's really not. Um, Even a monetary system is not voluntary because the government imposes a currency through physical force. So this is a huge glaring contradiction in the libertarian ideology that I don't think they will ever admit. Um, they want to be alphas without the state doing it for them, but they can't be, right? They still rely on the state. Every libertarian society would either immediately create a state to protect property rights or it would cease to be capitalist the moment they stop recognizing property claims backed by physical force. Um, They support the state whenever they are on the winning side, right? Whenever they can profit from it, right? When they're the employer setting the wages, the landlord collecting rent. Um, they support capitalism because they believe that they can win within it, right? Capitalism is really individualism. They believe it. This is the message that they have bought into. That is really based on your individual effort. They believe that capitalism is a meritocracy. They don't actually understand that capitalism is exploitive. It's not a meritocracy. Um, there's no such thing as a free market. Um, Free markets only exist in anarchy, but you can't have a free market under democracy. So you can't have free markets under a state. I've already talked about that also. That a free market would essentially be a bartering system without a currency, without occupational licenses, without regulations of the market, and they don't support this at all. They would not support getting rid of a currency. They would not support a real free market of getting rid of occupational licenses. Um, so really, when you peel all of it back, it's really just a very flawed philosophy. I mean, it's I guess it's closer to freedom, but it's not. It doesn't go all the way there. Now let's get to the data. This is where I am, the anarchist, right? These are the people who have seen both through statism and capitalism. They recognize that all hierarchies are oppressive and that meaningful freedom requires dismantling the entire system. They organize mutual aids, they occupy, they squat, they form cooperatives, they engage in direct action, they build alternative communities. Um, some work regular jobs out of necessity, but they actively work to undermine um, or escape wage labor. They're the organizers, activists, educators, but they're always anti-authoritarian and anti-capitalist. Um, their goal is liberation, not just for themselves, for everyone else. And again, this is something that I explain at length in my upcoming book. Um, I guess I'm not going to go into great detail, but basically, how someone becomes an anarchist is because they have experienced severe moral injuries, right? They have been oppressed, they have been fucked over and over again, and the system doesn't work for them. So they don't actually want to participate in it. What they want is to dismantle, right? People talk about how people are builders. Um, yeah, I could be a builder in theory, but I don't want to build within this oppressive ass system. I want to dismantle this system first, and then I can build. I can rebuild my own shit. I'm not trying to build somebody else's shit. So that's the whole crux of the Black State project that I proposed. Um, but this is the way anarchists think. They're not really builders. Their primary motivation is not building. Their primary motivation is dismantling the authority, the legitimacy of the state, the legitimacy of capitalism. And this is the way we're the gadflies of society. We question everything. We're the annoying person who's just like, state your authority, right? We're not just going to assume that you have authority. We want you to actually prove it. And for a lot of people, this is problematic. They don't understand why we can't just let it go. Why can't we just accept it and just be slaves like everybody else? They don't understand the way that we think. Again, you guys, this book is so good because I explain this in great detail. This is what leads to the disengagement that a lot of us have, the disillusionment of society, that basically people don't give a shit, that basically other people just can't relate to us because they don't think the way that we think. And so for some of us, right, we would rather die than to comply. So this is the reason why I'm advocating for medical assistance in dying, because this oppressive system can really, those moral injuries can actually lead to extreme depression, and it's not permanent. It's not a temporary thing where you can just go get counseling for and you're just going to be cured. No, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life because you don't accept being controlled. These people, the majority, are okay with being controlled like a slave, and it doesn't bother them. They're able to just go on with their lives and not even think about it. No, the Zetas cannot just go on with their life. They see the injustice, they see the moral injuries, and they cannot accept it. It bothers them to their core. They have rage. Like y'all don't understand. There's rage inside of them because they see how fucked up the system is, and yet they have no power to do anything about it. They can't really articulate their frustration with society because nobody really gets it. And so I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, if you guys, anyway, I'm not going to say it because I don't want to get this channel taken down. Um, they actively resist, right? And they don't just resist when it comes to like bigger things. This is something else that I write in my book. They talk about picking your battles, right? You should just fight the bigger issues and just let the smaller issues go. No, the Zetas are not like that. The Zetas fight every damn battle, right? They're not letting shit go because the reason why we can't let it go is because it bothers us to our core. We can't accept being somebody else's bitch, right? We can't accept somebody getting over us and dominating them. We can't accept it. It fucking makes us depressed. We cannot accept it. We can't just let it go. I don't know how other people are able to. I mean, the same way that y'all can't understand how Zetas think, we can't understand how everybody else thinks. We can't understand how you can accept being somebody else's bitch. How can you can accept being controlled by the government? Um, how you can accept being a perpetual slave and you don't actually have any fight in you to actually want to go against it. So the Zetas benefit from the system minimally, right? And against their will, right? We because the system exists, it's like this is our survival. Not because of our choice, but this because that's just the way things are. So because the system is so controlled, of course we have to use the legal institutions that they set up, right? We have to use their paper money. We have to go through their courts. We have to unwillingly, involuntarily get jobs and participate in the system. We're compelled to serve on juries, which I wanted to talk about that. But I decided this should take precedence because this is more compelling. We're forced to participate in a system that we're actively against. And we minimally benefit from it, but not really. Um, we're I guess we're engaged in it, but at the same time, we're consciously trying to figure out a way to get out of this shit because we fucking hate it. I guess the only group that is completely disengaged, and I'm not going to say that I completely disengaged in it because I guess you can't really disengage in it. I mean, you can try to live off the grid, you can try to be self-sufficient, you can try to have your own business, right? You can try to be as independent as possible, but nobody can really fully disengage. Nobody, unless you can create an anarchist society, unless you're able to create your own state where you're free to be left alone. But psychologically, we are completely disengaged. Um, we don't see we don't see the system as being legitimate. We don't respect any authority. We don't respect the authority of judges, the authority of police, the authority of our employers. We obey basically just because we're forced to, but nothing about it is voluntary. For most people, it is voluntary. They actively support it, which I need to talk to y'all about my whole jury appearance that I had yesterday. Um, but anyway, I'll come back to that. Um, Let me see if there's anybody here. Okay. So yeah, that this is where we are. We want real liberation. We want to disengage from the system entirely. Um, the point of this is to say that everyone who operates in the system is part of the problem, right? You can say that you're better than somebody else. It's the lesser of several evils, not two evils. Really, okay. To be honest, there's really only two sides. There's the status and the anti-status, and so yes, there are lesser degrees. I would say a libertarian is probably a little bit better than a hardcore status, but the libertarians are still status. The Sigmas are still status. The only ones who want full liberation are the Zetas, the anarchists. Um, Everybody else is supporting violence, right? They believe that they can use state power to impose their will through physical force. The alphas and the betas are the direct oppressors. I mean, that's obvious, right? They're the ones who are controlling shit. The alphas, you can see, no, the obvious, excuse me, the alphas are hidden. They're not visible. They're controlling shit from behind the scenes. The betas are visible. Um, the deltas are the enablers of society, the working class, through their faith in incremental progress, right? They're the ones who are going to tell you to conform. And the deltas are actually dangerous because a lot of them are your loved ones, right? They're your family members, right? There are people who have a deep connection to you who are just telling you, they're going to tell you to stop, right? So really, if you want to be a Zeta, you really have to disengage from even you have to go no contact with all of them because it takes an emotional toll on you, a psychological toll that you actually want to resist, and they're trying to pull you back into the system to just be successful, right? You should sell out in order to accumulate wealth. Um, Again, I write about this extensively in my upcoming book. This is the reason why they are against the medical, the right to medical assistance in dying. They want to use you as a means to an end. They all want something out of you, right? This is the reason why they're trying to get you to conform because you're not useful to them if you're constantly trying to be a fucking rebel. Um, you're not going to you're not going to give them money, right? You're not going to become wealthy and you're not going to be able to be exploitable by them if you're constantly trying to buck up against the system, right? Nobody's well, I can't imagine what it would be like to be a straight Zeta, right? Because you're probably not going to be wealthy if you're a Zeta because you're not going to be selling out. Um, I don't know how the hell you're going to get laid as a Zelta. You're not. Women are not going to want to fuck Zetas. I mean, maybe they are if they respect the confidence and you know all of that. But if you're a gold digger, no, they're not going to respect you. You're not. I mean, you're just not going to be successful within this hierarchy as a Zeta because of the way that your mind works. And I can say for myself, looking back, you can say that it was self sabotage for the things that I did to put myself in a predicament that I'm in. But at the same time, I didn't know any better. I didn't know the parameters of the hierarchy. I didn't know the unwritten rules. I didn't know that by bucking up in certain ways that I was really fucking myself over. So it's just the way that I'm built. It's my constitution, right? It's my nature. And this is the difference between the Zetas and the Sigmas is that the Zeta really values their principles above all thing else, right? Um, they don't like the Zeta. I'm sorry, the Sigmas actually do value prestige and being successful, right? It may not be on everyone else's terms, right? They may not want to be successful like based on society's terms, but they still want to be successful on their own terms. They still want wealth. Um, the Zetas don't give a shit about any of that. The Zetas are far more extreme than the fucking Sigmas. The Zetas are the people who don't give a fuck. They're willing to fucking die for their principles. Their principles matters above all thing else. and most people will never understand this because they're they have no relation to a zeta. Their principle, most people don't even have principles, get along. Are yeah, I mean, they're not gonna die for the little principles that they have because they're malleable, right? You can buy these people, you can buy most people off. You can't buy a fucking zeta off. There's nothing you can do with a zeta, right? The zetas are not going to compromise. There's nothing that you can do. You can't wave money in our faces and think that we're just going to give in. It's not going to fucking happen. Um. So only Zetas really. Zetas are the only group that actually value freedom. Only anarchists understand that you cannot use tools of oppression to achieve liberation. You can't vote your way out of domination. And freedom means the absence of domination. Real freedom is incompatible with statism. It's incompatible with capitalism. Um, so I don't think most people are going to be honest. If you were to ask people where they fall on this hierarchy, they're not going to say that they're well. First of all, most people have a complete misunderstanding of what a beta is, right? They would be lucky to be a damn beta. They're so damn low on the totem pole. They would never be considered a damn beta. Um, most people are deltas, and then I mean, I guess the fallen people are the gammas, and so you're going to be a delta or a gamma. That's where most people fall in this hierarchy. Most people are not sigmas, and they're definitely not zetas. So we're the zetas are the most rare out of all these people. Um, anyway, so I guess that really concludes my lecture on this. I guess I can come back later and talk about my experience with being forced to serve on a jury. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. Thank you for listening to the Black Anarchist Podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The struggle is real, and the fight for liberation is far from over. Get sovereign or die trying.